The rain came down like needles that November night, cold enough to bite through the 3 layers of clothes Maya wore, none of them thick enough to matter. She was 17 and invisible, the kind of girl people looked past on the street, their eyes sliding over her like she was part of the concrete, the grime, the ordinary misery of the city's forgotten corners. Her sneakers had holes that let the water in with every step, soaking her socks until her feet went numb, but she kept walking because the shelter closed at 9 and she'd missed it by 40 minutes. She had nowhere to go except the abandoned warehouse district where nobody asked questions and the cops only came when they absolutely had to. The alley between 4th and 5th was her usual spot, a narrow gap between 2 brick buildings where a broken awning gave her a few square feet of almost dry ground. She'd stuffed cardboard under a tarp last week, and it was still there, soggy now, but better than nothing. Her stomach cramped with hunger. She'd eaten half a gas station sandwich that morning, found in a trash can outside an office building, still wrapped, probably tossed by someone who ordered the wrong thing. That was 12 hours ago. She turned the corner into the alley and stopped. There was something blocking her spot. Not something. Someone. A body, sprawled face down across her cardboard, one arm twisted at an angle that made her stomach lurch. The leather jacket was black and massive, decorated with patches and symbols she recognized even from 15 feet away. A skull with wings. The words Hell's Angels arced across the back in letters that seemed to glow even in the darkness. Blood pooled around him, mixing with the rainwater, spreading in thin pink rivers toward the storm drain. Maya's first instinct was to run. You didn't mess with bikers. You didn't even look at them too long. They were violence incarnate. Men who lived by codes she didn't understand, who could kill you for stepping on their shadow. But her feet wouldn't move. She stood there, rain hammering her head, staring at the body that had stolen her only refuge in this entire godforsaken city. Her mind did the calculation it always did, survival math, risk versus reward. If she left, she'd spend the night walking, trying to stay awake, because sleeping on the street meant waking up robbed or worse. If she stayed, she'd be sleeping next to a corpse. If he wasn't a corpse, she saw his back move, just barely, a shallow rise and fall, the kind of breathing that said someone was holding on by their fingernails. Maya took a step closer, then another. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape her chest. The man's face was turned to the side, half submerged in a puddle. She could see the damage now. Someone had beaten him with purpose, with fury. His eye was swollen shut, a grotesque purple balloon. His lip was split open, still bleeding. His knuckles were shredded, which meant he'd fought back, fought hard. She crouched down, still out of arm's reach, studying him like he was a wounded animal that might lunge. He looked old, maybe 40, with gray threading through his dark hair and beard. Tattoos covered every inch of visible skin, snakes and skulls and words and languages she didn't know. A silver chain hung around his neck, disappearing into his shirt. His boots were expensive, real leather, the kind that cost more than Maya had seen in her entire life. Someone had dumped him here to die. That was clear. You didn't leave a Hell's Angel in an alley by accident. You did it because you wanted to send a message, or because you were afraid of what would happen if anyone found out what you'd done. The smart thing would be to walk away. The smart thing would be to pretend she never saw him. But Maya had stopped doing smart things the day her mother overdosed in their apartment and left her alone at 15. She'd stopped believing in smart things when the foster system chewed her up and spit her out. She'd stopped caring about smart things when she realized nobody was coming to save her. Not ever, not once. She reached out and touched his neck, feeling for a pulse. Her fingers came away wet with rain and blood. The pulse was there, thready and weak, but there. His skin was cold, too cold. He was dying. Dying right here in her alley, on her cardboard, in her spot. Maya sat back on her heels and laughed, a sound with no humor in it. The universe had a sixth sense of irony. She had nothing, no money, no family, no future worth mentioning. She lived on the street like a ghost, counting down the days until she'd be just another statistic, another dead kid nobody missed. And now she was supposed to save a man who probably wouldn't spit on her if she was on fire. A man whose brothers would murder entire families for looking at them wrong. A man who wore violence like other people wore cologne. She should go. She knew she should go. But when she started to stand up, his hand moved. His fingers, bloody and broken, reached out and grabbed the edge of her jacket. Not hard. He didn't have the strength for hard. But the intention was clear. Don't leave. His eye opened, the one that wasn't swollen shut. It was pale blue, almost gray, and it focused on her with an intensity that made her freeze. He tried to speak, but only managed a wet, rattling sound. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. Maya pulled her jacket free from his grip. She stood up and looked down at him, this enormous man who'd probably killed people, who'd probably done things that would give her nightmares. He stared back at her with that one good eye, and she saw something she didn't expect. Not anger, not threat, just the same thing she saw in her own reflection every morning. The exhausted desperation of someone who knew they were about to die alone. She cursed under her breath, a long string of words her mother used to say. Then she knelt down beside him again and started going through his pockets. She found a phone, cracked screen, dead battery. A wallet with no cash but several cards, and an ID that said his name was Marcus Cole, 6'4", organ donor. She found a knife, folded, the handle worn smooth from use. She found a pack of cigarettes, crushed, and a lighter that still worked. Nothing useful, nothing that would save him. Maya grabbed him under his arms and tried to drag him further under the awning out of the rain. He was impossibly heavy, 250 pounds of muscle and leather and dead weight. She managed to move him maybe 3 feet before her arms gave out. She collapsed next to him, breathing hard, her shoulders screaming. This was insane. She was trying to save a man she couldn't move, with no supplies, no help, no plan. But she couldn't just watch him die. She'd watched her mother die, watched the light go out of her eyes while Maya held her hand and begged her to stay. She'd been powerless then. She was powerless now, but at least she could try. Maya used her own jacket to pillow his head. She took off her outer shirt, the one with fewer holes, and pressed it against the worst of his wounds, a gash on his side that wouldn't stop bleeding. The shirt soaked through in seconds, warm and sticky. She kept pressure on it anyway, her hands shaking, her teeth chattering from cold and fear. Marcus's, I found her again. This time, his lips moved and sound came out, barely a whisper. What? She didn't have a good answer. She didn't even have a bad answer. So she just told him the truth. You're my spot. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his destroyed face. Then his eye closed, and his breathing got shallower. Maya pressed harder on the wound, watching the blood seep between her fingers, knowing it wouldn't be enough. She'd made her choice. She'd chosen to help a monster, and now she'd have to live with whatever came next. Maya stayed with him through the night, pressing her shirt against his wounds until her arms went numb, until the bleeding finally slowed to something that wouldn't kill him in the next hour. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every sound made her jump. Every car that passed on the street beyond the alley made her think someone was coming back to finish what they'd started. Around 4 a.m, Marcus woke up screaming. Not loud. His body didn't have the strength for loud, but the sound was raw and animal, full of pain that made Maya's skin crawl. She put her hand on his chest, felt his heart racing like a trapped bird. You're okay. She lied, because what else could she say? You're going to be okay. His good eye opened and found her in the darkness. For a moment he looked confused, like he'd forgotten where he was, who she was. Then recognition came back, and with it something harder, sharper. You need to go, he said, his voice like gravel scraping concrete. Right now, before they come back. Maya kept her hand on his chest. Who's they? Marcus tried to sit up and failed, collapsing back with a grunt of agony. Doesn't matter. You helped me. I'm grateful. Now get the hell out of here before you end up like me. She almost listened. Almost. But something in his voice, underneath the anger and the pain, sounded like fear. Not for himself. For her. I don't have anywhere to go, Maya said. This is it. This alley. This is my home. He stared at her, really looked at her for the first time. Took in the torn clothes, the hollow cheeks, the way her hands shook from more than just cold. Understanding crossed his face, followed by something that looked almost like shame. "Christ," he whispered. "You're just a kid." Maya bristled. "I'm 17, and I've been taking care of myself for 2 years, so don't talk to me like I'm some child who doesn't understand how the world works." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My brothers will come looking for me. When they find me here with you, they're going to ask questions. Lots of questions. And if they think you had anything to do with this, if they think you're connected to the people who did this, they won't care that you're 17. They won't care about anything except payback." The way he said it wasn't a threat. It was a warning, and warnings only came from people who gave a damn whether you lived or died. "So tell them I saved you," Maya said. "Tell them the truth." He almost smiled. "The truth doesn't matter much in my world. What matters is who you trust and who you don't, and trust isn't something we give easy." Maya stood up, her knees popping, her whole body aching from hours of kneeling on concrete. The rain had stopped, but the cold remained, seeping into her bones. "Then I guess we're both screwed," she said, "because I don't have anywhere else to be." Over the next 2 days, Maya learned things about Marcus Cole that nobody would believe. She learned he'd been a Hell's Angel for 23 years, since he was 19 and stupid and looking for something that felt like family. She learned he had a daughter somewhere, grown now, who hadn't spoken to him in a decade. She learned he could recite poetry, real poetry, Yeats and Bukowski, lines he'd memorized in prison. She learned the beating hadn't been random. 3 men had ambushed him outside a bar. Men he'd never seen before, professionals who knew exactly how to hurt someone without killing them quick. They'd left him in the alley because they wanted him found, wanted his club to see what happened to people who stepped out of line. The problem was Marcus hadn't stepped out of line. He'd been set up, framed for something he didn't do, and now his own brothers thought he was a traitor. The club that had been his family for 2 decades wanted him dead, and the men who'd framed him wanted to make sure the job got finished before Marcus could prove his innocence. Maya brought him food she scrounged from dumpsters behind restaurants. Water she filled from gas station bathrooms. She cleaned his wounds with rainwater and strips torn from her own clothes. She watched him get stronger, watched the color come back to his face, watched him go from barely breathing to sitting up to standing, leaning against the brick wall like it was the only thing keeping him upright. On the 3rd day, a black SUV rolled past the alley, slow, searching. Maya saw it first. She grabbed Marcus and pulled him deeper into the shadows, her heart in her throat. The SUV stopped. A door opened. Footsteps echoed, heavy boots on wet pavement. Marcus put his hand over her mouth, pulled her against the wall behind a stack of pallets. His body was tense as wire, ready to fight even though he could barely stand. A man appeared at the mouth of the alley. Leather vest, shaved head, tattoos covering his neck. He looked right at their hiding spot, and Maya was sure he could hear her heart, sure he could smell her fear. Then his phone rang. He answered it, spoke in low tones, turned, and walked back to the SUV. The engine started. The vehicle pulled away. Maya didn't breathe until the sound faded completely. Marcus let her go and slumped against the wall, his face gray. "They'll be back," he said, "and next time they'll search better." That night, Marcus told her everything. About the shipment that had gone missing, $50,000 worth of merchandise that had been his responsibility. About how it had vanished and the evidence pointed to him. About Tommy Rourke, his best friend for 15 years, who'd testified against him to the club, who'd looked him in the eye and called him a thief. About how he'd figured out too late, how Tommy had been skimming for months, setting Marcus up to take the fall, and by the time Marcus understood what was happening, the club had already voted. They'd given him to Tommy's crew for punishment. They'd sanctioned his death. "So why aren't you dead?" Maya asked. Marcus touched his ribs, winced. "Tommy's boys aren't as thorough as they think. And they got sloppy, celebrating before the job was done. I heard them talking. Heard enough to know I was right. That Tommy set me up. But knowing doesn't help me much when I'm a dead man if I show my face." Maya pulled her knees to her chest. "So what are you going to do?" He looked at her with those gray eyes, and she saw the calculation happening, the same survival math she did every day. "I'm going to prove Tommy's guilty. Going to get evidence the club can't ignore. And then I'm going to make him pay for what he did." His voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was describing a trip to the grocery store instead of revenge that would probably end with someone dead. Maybe him. Maybe a lot of people. Maya should have been scared. Should have run. But all she felt was a strange kind of clarity, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. "I can help," she said. Marcus shook his head. "No, you've done enough. More than enough. When I'm strong enough to move, I'll go, and you'll forget you ever saw me." But Maya had already decided. This man, this violent, dangerous, broken man, had shown her more humanity in 3 days than anyone had in 2 years. He'd thanked her. He'd warned her. He'd tried to protect her, even when he could barely protect himself. She'd spent so long being invisible, being nothing, being someone the world had written off. Maybe it was time to prove the world wrong. "I'm invisible," Maya said. "Nobody sees me. Nobody notices me. I could go places you can't, hear things you can't hear. You need eyes and ears you don't have." Marcus studied her face. "This isn't a game. These are men who kill people. Who've killed people. You understand that." She met his gaze without flinching. "I understand I've been dead for 2 years, just waiting for my body to figure it out. At least this way, I'd be dying for something that matters." Something changed in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. The look of someone seeing another person who'd been pushed too far, who'd run out of reasons to be careful. "If we do this," Marcus said slowly, "if you help me, I protect you. That's the deal. Whatever happens, however this ends, I make sure you walk away clean." Maya almost laughed. "You can't even walk." He smiled, and this time it was real, reaching his eyes. "Give me 2 more days." It took 3. 3 days of Marcus pushing his body past its limits, forcing himself to move, to walk, to fight through pain that would have kept most people in bed for weeks. 3 days of Maya scouting the area, learning which bars the club frequented, where Tommy lived, who he talked to. 3 days of planning something that would either clear Marcus's name or get them both killed. On the 7th day after she'd found him, Marcus stood at the mouth of the alley without leaning on anything, his jacket zipped, his boots laced, looking like the man he'd been before someone had tried to erase him from existence. He looked down at Maya and said, "Last chance to walk away." She stepped up beside him, this tall, scared, stubborn girl who decided that invisible didn't mean powerless. "You said you'd protect me," she said. "So protect me. Let's go prove you're not a traitor." Marcus nodded once. Then he put his hand on her shoulder, gentle, the way a father might, and said something that hit harder than any punch he'd ever thrown. "Nobody's ever saved my life before. Not once in 43 years. I won't forget that. Whatever happens, I won't forget you." Maya felt something break open in her chest, something that had been locked and frozen for so long she'd forgotten it existed. She blinked hard against the burning in her eyes and said, "Then we better not die." They walked out of that alley together, the throwaway girl and the thrown-away man, heading toward a reckoning that would prove whether loyalty was worth more than blood, whether the forgotten could become unforgettable, whether 2 people with nothing left to lose could be each other's salvation in a world that had given up on them both.